A stickman figure standing in the middle aisle of a grocery store, reaching for a can off a shelf, hears the cashier mid-sentence at the front counter simply stop talking, and turns to find the sentence still hanging in the air with no one left standing behind it to finish it. The cart the cashier was pushing a second ago rolls forward on its own and bumps gently into the counter. The customer who was waiting behind it is not on the floor, not anywhere nearby, simply no longer part of the store at all, as if the space where a person used to be quietly closed back up around nothing. A child's balloon that was tied to a stroller near the entrance drifts slowly up toward the ceiling, the stroller itself sitting empty and still, and the stickman figure stares at it longer than at almost anything else that morning, because a balloon rising on its own is somehow harder to make sense of than a person disappearing was. Outside, a car that was moving through the intersection a moment ago is drifting to a slow stop against a curb, engine still running, no one behind the wheel to have steered it there, and the stickman figure standing in the doorway of the store does not yet understand that this is happening to an entire species at once. By the time the stickman figure reaches the sidewalk, calling out to anyone who might answer, the street that was busy 10 minutes earlier is holding only vehicles stopped at odd angles, doors left open, engines idling, and not one other person anywhere along its length. The phone in his pocket still has a signal, still lights up when he tries a call, and rings into homes and offices that have no one left inside them to pick it up, every number he tries producing the exact same patient, useless ringing. He tries the emergency line next, out of habit more than expectation, and the automated system answers exactly as it always has, cheerfully asking him to hold, for operators who are not delayed, only gone, along with everyone who might have needed them. By the end of that first hour, the stickman figure has walked the length of a downtown that should hold thousands of people at this time of day and found exactly none of them, shops standing open with the lights still on, food still warm on counters, coffee still steaming in abandoned cups. There is no scene of struggle anywhere, no sign that anyone tried to run or fight whatever this was, only the specific, total absence of a species removed from the middle of its own ordinary afternoon without so much as a sound to mark the moment it happened. Animals are the one thing still moving. A dog that used to belong to someone is standing at the door of a house, waiting for a routine that will not resume, and a stickman figure passing it on the sidewalk has no comfort to offer that a dog would understand. By nightfall, the city that was never supposed to go fully dark still has most of its lights on, automated systems running exactly as programmed with no one left to notice they no longer serve any purpose, and the stickman figure spends the first night in a house that is not his own, because his own suddenly feels too far to walk to alone. He chooses that house for no reason he can explain except that its porch light was on and its door was unlocked, and he sits at a stranger's kitchen table until well past midnight, listening to a refrigerator hum in a kitchen that will never again hear anything else. The radio still broadcasts, looping the same recorded programming from stations with no one left in the booth, and the stickman figure listens to a cheerful, pre-recorded voice discuss the weather for a city that no longer has anyone in it to hear the forecast matter. He turns the radio off somewhere around 2 in the morning, not because the voice bothers him, but because a cheerful voice describing an ordinary tomorrow has started to feel like the cruelest thing left still running. By the second day, the search stops being about finding help and starts being about finding anyone. Hospitals stand fully lit and fully empty, patients and staff gone in the same instant, monitors still beeping steadily over beds that hold nothing. A school the stickman figure passes still has a lesson written on a whiteboard mid-sentence, chairs pushed back at the exact angle a class leaves them when a bell rings, and he stands in that doorway longer than he means to, looking at a room built for 30 that will never again hold even one. Airports hold planes stopped mid-taxi and, somewhere beyond any single stickman figure's view, the ones that were already in the sky came down however an unpiloted aircraft comes down, and the stickman figure chooses not to drive toward any of those crash sites, because there is nothing left there he could do anything about. By the end of the first week, the stickman figure has driven through 6 towns without finding one other person, a search that started with hope and has quietly become a habit, something to do with the hours rather than something expected to succeed. He starts leaving notes anyway, taped to the inside of gas station windows and propped against steering wheels, his name, a date, a road he plans to take next, messages written less for any reader he expects and more because writing them is easier than admitting out loud that he no longer expects one. Farms scattered across the countryside hold livestock with no one left to feed them, fences broken open by animals that grew desperate before the stickman figure arrived to open the gates himself, one farm at a time, for creatures that have no idea what happened to the people who used to care for them. By the first month, The power that once felt like it would simply always be there starts flickering in places, plants that ran on automated systems finally reaching the edge of what they could manage without a single human hand to intervene when something breaks. The stickman figure learns to read a city not for people anymore but for what will fail next, which grid segment will lose power first, which water system will run dry soonest, a new kind of attention that has replaced every worry he used to carry about money, deadlines, or anyone else's opinion of him. By the third month, grass has already started splitting the pavement on streets that used to be swept clean every week, and the stickman figure watches a city's edges soften back towards something wilder with a speed that surprises him more than the disappearance itself did. He keeps a routine anyway, waking at a set hour, eating at a set hour, maintaining a version of a day that no longer has anyone in it to notice whether he keeps it or not, because the alternative is letting the hours blur into a shapelessness he is not sure he could climb back out of. By the 6th month, he has stopped driving toward the sound of anything unusual, a distant crash, a collapsing structure, the occasional animal call that briefly sounds almost human, because 6 months of hoping that any of it means another person has taught him exactly how it always ends. The silence stops being an absence and starts being a kind of pressure, a texture in every room he enters, and the stickman figure catches himself talking out loud sometimes, not to anyone, just to hear a voice fill a space built for more than one. He starts narrating small tasks under his breath, naming the can he is opening, the road he is turning down, small ordinary sentences that used to pass unspoken between people and now exist only because he refuses to let his own voice go completely unused. A year in, he has walked through museums, cathedrals, libraries, every kind of room built to hold a crowd, standing alone in each one with everything humanity ever built for looking at things together, and no one left to look at any of it beside him. He spends an entire afternoon once in a gallery hall lined with paintings crowds used to gather in front of, standing in the exact center of the room where the most people would once have stood, feeling the specific shape of a silence that was never designed to hold just one person. Nothing about this is temporary. There is no search that widens far enough to find someone, no signal that answers back, no morning that reveals this was ever going to end, because the absence was never described as anyone leaving, only as everyone gone, and gone has not once changed its mind since. The stickman figure who once complained about crowded stores and long lines now keeps every light in every house he passes turned on through the night, not for himself, but because an empty window in the dark feels like a version of alone he has not yet learned how to carry. He is not lonely in the ordinary sense anymore, because ordinary loneliness assumes someone else exists somewhere to be lonely for. What he carries instead has no name yet, the specific weight of being the only witness left to an entire species' unfinished sentence, one can of food, one ringing phone, one warm cup of coffee at a time.